Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Occultists Anonymous. This one's going to be a little bit different. It is me. I'm Chris. Hi, welcome. I story told for the group for a mini arc set in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia, and it was a lot of fun. And one of the things that we talked about as the arc winded down was it'd be neat to kind of go through, because so much of everything that I prepped and all the NPCs and stuff like that was completely unnecessarily over prepped, and so both the group and you guys in the Discord were all really interested in what else was going on and all that kind of stuff. So I got some questions from the Discord, and I got some notes that I have converted to digitized form, because I am a habitual notebook scribbler. Like I have like 4 different notebooks on my desk right now. I just write everything down, and so I wanted to get all that out, and I got some good questions here, and I'm sure there's some very good things to talk about. So the first 2 questions kind of go together. Doc asked, so I noticed at least my group's one-shot tied into the game a little bit. So how much did the one-shots tie in, and were any of the tie-in ideas cut? And Elvis asked, how did it work out for the actual game, doing the different one-shots before playing the first session? So both of those guys were part of 2 different one-shots that I ran, because this whole arc took place while we were in quarantine for coronavirus, and I didn't have a job. And I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was like, hey, I will prep for a campaign and run one-shots for the community. This sounds like a great thing. And it was. I really enjoyed it. I loved being able to sneak hints to the one-shots into the main story. I thought that would be really cool. I know if I had been a player in the one-shot and see like, oh, that's what my group did. That's really cool. So for Doc's group, they were the Free Council cabal that discovered the Seers were tomb robbing James Monroe's tomb. James Monroe is actually buried in Hollywood Cemetery, which is a beautiful cemetery right on the edge of the James River. And it's a really cool, beautiful park. You can walk through it, and a lot of really old, cool tombs and everything. And so they discovered that James Monroe was actually probably a mage, and discovered some orichalcum silver ladder stuff, some jewelry on him, and that had been stolen, or they discovered that it had been stolen from him, because time mages, you know how it goes. Tracked the Seers down, and fought them in the bottom of the Virginia State Capitol, in the what would be the library that Drifter and Virgil kind of used as a home base during most of the arc. And then Elvis's group was mostly Guardian Cabal, and their story was focused around something fucky happening in a labyrinth. And that basically a whole bunch of people that were in a labyrinth suddenly either awakened or died. Way faster than should have. They ended up trapping down someone that had an artifact that was a carved wooden lighthouse, and basically cast a really crazy apocalypse variant. That also had some life and some fate magic tied into it. And they ended up tracking this down, tracking the person down to the person wielding this artifact to Belle Isle, which is a island in the middle of the James River that you can get to via a suspended walking bridge. It's a really beautiful spot. Actually was a Civil War prison when, back during the Civil War. And but now it's where people go to hang out on the rocks and play in the rapids and all kinds of cool stuff. It's a really cool spot. And so they discovered a ancient Atlantean temple that was buried beneath this island. Stairs going down to it and everything like that from the top of the island. And they discovered this like calcified web and giant jade spider and everything like that in it, and they're like, this doesn't make any sense. And then they all realize that it's tied into a sixth watchtower, which is the watchtower that I've talked about a couple times that I've written up, the Klothos, which is a fate and life path. So I was going to work that into the story. So that's definitely something that got cut because it ended up not coming up. But as part of the resolution of their session, they made an oath with Guan Yu, who they had gotten some help from, that only they and she would be allowed to study the temple and the artifact and how it was awakening people and stuff like that, and whether any of these people were awakening to this new path that they, were fairly sure that now it existed. So that was something that definitely got cut because we focused on other things. We had some cool werewolves and spirit adventures and stuff like that, which was part of the, the werewolves weren't part of it. They weren't part of my prep till, way later. But that was something that I thought was really neat that I had written up, and I really enjoyed the tie-in of getting to sneak in some hints and some references that the community members that had played with me got to enjoy. So that is something that I think could be really cool to do in the future. I don't know if and when I'll run another arc or what we're going to do after this, after our main OA campaign finishes. I will have definitely going to be doing more mage and possibly other stuff. But that is something I would do in the future for sure. Camo asked, is it you or the other players who came up with connecting NPCs and how much information is developed for them? I came up with pretty much everybody just as sort of it kind of just ended up being hey, I wrote this setting. Do you guys want to play in it? I think it would work well if we're going to do this time skip thing, because we did the time skip in OA, skip 6 months for the New York, the Rookery storyline. So for us to take a month break and go play a different game, I thought it would fit really well. So I had this whole concilium written up, and everybody made their characters. And then I realized, man, y'all have zero chance of interacting with half of the things I've created. So I'll show everybody and go over the Cabal in a second after I get through some of these questions. Kind of run through and talk about all the characters that I designed and stuff like that. And half of them are like, yeah, I'd play this mage. This sounds like fun. That was kind of my whole thing when I was creating the NPCs for this. It's I wanted them to be more than just, here's a mage that's been there and has done things. I tried to do, and I think I did a pretty good job of getting it to come across. I tried to get across that every mage there is doing something. They have something going on. They're not just, hey, this guy does this. It's, this guy's in the middle of doing this. This lady is in the middle of doing that, So, so the Free Council connection for Vicar and Amanita was good. They tied into a couple NPCs, and Drew played Silver Ladder and got to connect with Virgil, who was, I think, the first character I wrote for the setting. Bless Guan Yu and Virgil were all really early, strong ideas that I had, and I was really excited about putting those guys on screen, and they ended up being most of the screen time for the NPCs during the actual play. So I didn't feel bad about losing those. I'll get into some other characters that I really would have loved to have made it on screen, and maybe they can be adapted at some other point. But so yeah, as far as how much information is developed for them, I'll go through my 3 pages of notes here in a second. Icecraftmon said, a little bit out of character, but how long did you live in Richmond? I grew up here, technically in the suburbs. I still technically live in the suburbs, but always considered myself a Richmond native. I grew up here, and in 2007 went to college out in Blacksburg, Virginia Tech. Lived there until 2014, and then my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, then we got married and all that. So Sarah and I moved down to Austin in 2014 and lived down there until last fall. So we are back. We've been here for almost a year. I've been unable to enjoy the city for half of that time due to COVID restrictions and all that. But I am happy to be back, close to family and close to friends. Atratus Ash lives about an hour away, and we get to see her and her partner quite a bit. So that's always great. Doc says, what was the biggest challenge you faced storytelling mage? The biggest challenge I had was being like, when I was presenting characters, making them as mean and as is contrite the right word I'm looking for? Contentious? As contentious as I wanted them to be, as I imagined them to be. Drew has talked about this sometimes too, about like needing to take time to like get in and out of character to be as bad as he needs to be to portray characters. I think that was something that I dealt with, and I don't think I quite got there. Guan Yu, wish she could have had a little bit more screen time. Wish I could have gotten a little bit more into her. She is fucking horrifying. Her obsessions are terrible. And but she's a 4th generation mage. Like, her family keeps awakening, and she is absolutely obsessed with why that is. And then she becomes a master of life and creates her own progeny and tries to make them awaken. So that's some stuff that we didn't get into with her, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But like, being able to get across how fucking out there and like almost alien some of these people are was hard for me. And like, Bless was supposed to be a lot meaner than she was. She ended up just being a nice old granny, kind of due to how the story went. Algo said, how big of a cast did you prepare beforehand? I created the entire council. I created Herald, Sentinel, and Interfector. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 people. And then I had leaders for each of the factions, for each of the orders. And then I had like 7 different seers, all with like fleshed out shadow names and what they do and stuff like that. And then we actually ended up going with a different route for the seers, and I ended up using a different ministry, and then I probably should have adapted people a little bit better. But I think it worked out pretty well. So I created a big cast of characters, like for something knowing we were only going to play for 3 to 4 weeks. And I was like, yeah, 16 characters. Let's get them on screen. That'll be great. Definitely over prepared. Camo asked, what do you do? This is kind of a general storytelling question. What do you do when the players completely go off the rails and ruin your plans for the session, or change your plans for the session? I pretend that I knew what they were going to do. I think quickly on my feet, and I roll with the punches. I think, like, for a planning standpoint of like when you're prepping a campaign, like, let's pretend we're drawing a map, and the players are in the party is in New Castleton, and there's a road going east, west, and north out of New Castleton, and that there is going to be a adventure where they go into a cave and fight some orcs and goblins and rescue a princess. They don't know which direction the cave is. Could be the east, could be the west, could be the north for any of them. The trick is to not put it on the map until they pick a direction that they're going. And then that is the direction where the cave was the whole time. So little tricks like that of like prepping, but not writing yourself into a corner where they can like completely just go, you know what, fuck you, we're not doing anything you planned for. That said, one of the big examples, and it caught me by surprise, was in the first episode or first session, might have been the second episode, Vicar's opening scene when he gets confronted by the angel of death that the seer has sent to assassinate him with, and he just decides to put this thing on ban and just blow holes into it till it dies. I had not expected that. There was a lot of info that supernal being had, and I wasn't expecting even a bad man that I knew Vicar was going to be. I wasn't expecting him to just blow that thing away. And if he did try to fight it, I wasn't expecting him to have won so easily. Now I did pull my punches a little bit in several fights in this thing, because like if you as a storyteller know how to play mage, and especially in this kind of game where like the players are starting with 4 dots in at least one arcana, and the enemies are mostly adepts. I think adepts, either adepts or masters in at least one arcana. Like if things come to magical blows, like combat can end in a single round. So to play as a storyteller and to try to tell an interesting story and to make mages seem threatening without just going, okay, I kill your character, womp womp, game over for you, sit in the corner while I talk to the other 2 players for an hour, can be hard. That kind of wraps back to that previous question about what's hard to do as a storyteller. But yeah, so yeah, I was not expecting Vicar to just fucking ice a supernal being and just deal with the consequences. I would have liked to have that be a plot point. I would have liked for someone to find out about it, to find evidence of what he'd done. It would have been an opportunity to introduce the Interfector, for him to be in trouble. Because I love my Interfector that I made, and I'm going to talk about them in a second. I think that answers Moku's question too. What thing did you prep that the players skipped that you were excited for? I wanted them to meet bad Interfector. I'm going to jump actually straight to Itzli. There they are. So this is Itzli. I kind of just stream of consciousness put some notes about them. This is the amount of prep I had for an NPC. I know about how many dots or about how many dice I want to roll when I challenge people with things. If it's something that the person's okay at, it's like 5 to 7 dice. If it's something they're very good at, like 10 dice. If it's a high gnosis multi-master, like 13 dice for something is not unheard of. So I kind of just play loose and goosey with those sort of breakpoints. And if they're bad at it, like throw 3 dice at something. So yeah, you don't actually have to create, like I did not create like 16 character sheets. That would be insane. I didn't have specific merits in mind for these guys. I basically came up with a shadow name, a order, a path, arcana they specialized, maybe made notes about their gnosis, and then what do they do? That's kind of kind of carries over for everything here. So Itzli is the named for the Aztec god of cheerful slaughter, or he's a cheerful god of slaughter that the Aztecs worshipped. And look up, depictions of Itzli, and shit's fucking wild. So I was writing this before we had gotten into all the Moonkeeper stuff. So there's a lot of things that I wrote for these characters that now looking at it like, did Chris steal this from Drew, or did Drew steal this from Chris? The answer is kind of neither, actually. Sometimes both. So Itzli is a person that doesn't really identify with gender. They had a transformative awakening and came out of their atheresis. So they came out of the primal wilds in the body of a child and have not changed in like 25 years. Since like 1995. They're of mixed race, black and Latinx. Their nimbus is the sensation of your footing being slippery as you like step in pools of blood of a ritual sacrifice. And that like nauseating sort of, I don't know if you've ever been around like a blood spill, like if someone has an accident or something like that. Like there is a distinct like scent to blood, that coppery sort of smell, and imagine just like stepping in a pool of blood and knowing as you face this person that you're going to slip and they're going to take advantage of that fact. Both their vice and their virtue is bloodthirsty. And basically everyone is terrified of them because they live in various different parks or out in the woods, and they're an orphan of Proteus, which is a really cool legacy that they just like use their legacy attainments to like slap animal parts onto their body. So when Mr. the Interfector shows up and they're a small child with bear claws that lays sentence upon you by just like tearing you open with claws, that's a reason to behave yourself in Richmond. So that is, besides the characters that made it into the show, Itzli is the one that I was like, man, I really wanted to just be horrifying with this character. So I'm going to scroll back up and start going through a little bit. So I wanted to put some of my original notes of my themes. I wanted to have Strangers in the Twilight, and this is things that I said to Drew and Ash and Craig. I said I want to run a campaign that's built around something weird happening in the shadow, and a concilium that doesn't get along and has a lot of trust issues. So Strangers in the Twilight and a fractured concilium without trust. I essentially satisfied on Richmond is going through some gentrification. Richmond is it's a growing city. It's a fun city. There's a lot of cool things to do now. It is definitely a different city than when I was growing up. There's a lot more money, a lot more people want to actually live in the city. But that does have consequences. It does have real life repercussions. I'm not going to talk about all the evils of gentrification right now. That's not this video. You should look it up though. It's something to be aware of when you go to your favorite hipster coffee spot in the neighborhood that 10 years ago white people wouldn't be caught dead in, or would be caught dead. I don't know. Whatever. Point is, let's go on. So Sears using gentrification as a weapon. And then Bless versus Bless as the Hierarch and Guan Yu as the Sentinel, as the central point of contention. Basically 2 years or a year. What did I say? Was it a year or 2 years? I think it was a year. It was 2. Whatever. Point is, before this current setting, the whole concilium had been at war with the Seers of DC. And the Silver Ladder was destroyed And they left Virgil as the last one standing, blinded him, and made him an example of don't fuck with DC, or this is what will happen to you. Justice is blind, after all. So those were my points that as I was filling out the Concilium and imagining what the characters would get into, of what, kind of what all was going on, and how each character was going to fit into that. So Bless, older white woman, perfect Southern grandmother. The shadow name Bless is short for bless your heart. If you are unfamiliar with this term, it is generally said by those of us from the South in a fairly sarcastic way. The South has a fairly strong policy of if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. At least that's what they profess. So generally, if someone has done something dumb or is acting a fool or whatever, you can just say bless their heart. And so that is the intention behind her shadow name. I know some people are definitely not even from America, maybe didn't get that at all. So definitely wanted to explain that a little bit more. But she is a master of life and death. She is a Mysterium Thyrsus. She treats spirits like her old friends and ghosts like her grandchildren. She also uses them as spies. She has them basically she keeps track of who in the Concilium doesn't have spirit or doesn't have death. And if they have one and not the other, then she'll send a ghost to go spy on people that don't have death, and she'll send spirits to go spy on people that don't have spirit. And so she uses all that info gathering and gossip, basically, part of the shadow name, to try and survive this sort of Cold War politics situation that she's found herself in, with a vocal minority of adamantine arrows acting as warhawks. Virgil is an older blind Mediterranean man. I didn't specify exactly his origin, but Greek, Italian, Northern African, that kind of thing. Very olive skinned, curly brown hair, that kind of thing. Fitting for a Virgil, who in the Dante reference is from Italy. From Greece, I guess, originally. Whatever. Classics. References. It's not Devil May Cry, I promise. So a little bit more about his background. He gets adopted by the adamantine arrow after the destruction of the silver ladder, basically put forth as propaganda almost of look what they did to our silver ladder. We cannot forget. And so that's why the adamantine arrow and parts of the Free Council have kept him as the counselor, have basically forced Bless to keep him as the counselor for the Obrimos, so that he is front and center there for Concilium meetings, so that new Obrimos have to come and talk to him and are reminded and have to see what he has gone through. He is a master of Prime and Death and has forces 4. There's a couple NPCs in here that I did this with, maybe not necessarily masters, but I think it's really interesting to think about the kind of mage that would study that dedicatedly, especially to go into a legacy based around your inferior arcana. I think that's just a really interesting, the psyche or the particular way that your gnosis would be. If you're the one that says, if every 9 out of 10 Obrimos go, I don't get death, I don't understand it, it's weird, I don't like ghosts, fuck off. And you're the one that goes, nah, bro, ghosts are part of the machine. There's ghosts in the machine. Yeah. So you'll notice that there's a couple other NPCs that I did that with. It's hard to do in character when you're playing, because you have to get a tutor or make a legacy or whatever to go higher than 2 dots. But this was if I'm just creating a character, I can just say, hey, yeah, they're Master of Death. It's fine. So, planned version of the Occultist Counselor and also the Provost. I did have Provost for each of these. I'm not going to just go through and I couldn't actually find my original version of the notes where I had everything written down. I found my like mid-game scratches and scrapes and rearrangements and erasings, and so yeah, neither of these acanthus made it into the game. But I had Dog Don't Hunt, which is another Southern euphemism of like if you're telling a story to someone and it doesn't make sense to them, the details don't add up kind of thing. They could say that dog don't hunt. I mean, they don't believe you. This man is affects the shadow name, or his shadow name affects the persona of a bearded hillbilly grandpa. Fate 5, Prime 4, Mind 4. He doesn't understand time very well. Hasn't gotten a dot of it since his awakening. Doesn't care. Fate can do everything he needs to without him having to get into the wonkiness of time travel. He's a friend and lackey of Bless. And between the number of guardians that are on the council and some of the different dealings and territory working together kind of things between the Guardians and Mysterium, it is a contentious point for the Adamantine Arrow that they accuse Bless of favoritism, that the Mysterium and the Council itself favors the Guardians more than a proper Concilium would. I had Alcedo, or Kingfisher, is where I got this is the Latin name for kingfishers, which is a really pretty bird. I have some pictures and stuff. I'm going to put them in the Richmond Mages Discord channel, so take a look in there. I don't want to pull it up. I don't have that window set up for this stream for recording, so if you have questions, or remind me once you see this video, remind me, like, hey Chris, we need to see some pictures that you got. I also don't want to put other people's artwork that I can't credit, because I did just get inspiration type pictures, so I don't want to put other people's artwork onto our show without crediting them, without knowing where it comes from, that kind of thing. Alcedo is, I wrote non-binary. They're trans non-binary, like they're a trans person, a trans person that uses they them pronouns. They're of Malaysian descent. They're in a cabal with Bushiasta, who I'll get to in just a second. They're a Free Council Acanthus, and they just very stylish and focused on exploring the time and fate aspects of evolution, actually, with that Life 3 tied in there. That was kind of their thing. It could have been cool. I didn't have them as fleshed out as some of the other characters, but it seemed like a good shadow name of this bird focused, could slot right into the Rookery at any point. So Alcedo was cool. Would have liked to get them in there, and dealing with a Malaysian character could have been really cool. I have some thoughts about that, and I will say I was actively trying to have representation of a lot of different genders and ethnicities and stuff like that. At some point, I was like, this white guy, am creating all of these characters to like tick boxes, but that's what it felt like to me. Like I don't know. I was trying to make genuine, authentic characters that were not just a concilium full of white mages, because that doesn't seem realistic to me. That's not what Richmond is like, and that's not what I think any concilium would be like. I think there should be more representation and more focus on getting it into streams. So I am doing my best to get that across without it just being like, all right, and now we'll have a trans character, and now we'll have a black character. Like that was not my intention at all. I hope it did not come across like that. I hope it does not, as we're reading this list, come across like that. Very much was like putting characters together and using their ethnicities and backgrounds and imagining what kind of a mage they would be from that. Bushasta, they are part of a cabal with Alcedo. Bushasta is a Zoroastrian deva of sloth, and they are a Mysterium relic hunter and the Mystigos counselor. They use their mind spells to control and lull people into a bit of laziness and disinterest. Distracting the sleeper guards from, museums or, places where things need to be acquired for the Mysterium. Very Nathan Drake, I think, is kind of something I pulled from this, but definitely a little bit more manipulative. They have a dragon, Goche familiar. Something I was like, yep, this is cool. They're a treasure hunter, and what better ally to hunt treasure with than a dragon? Would have loved to get both of them into the game and develop them further. Moros counselor, we did see Telltale in the show, I believe. Maybe not. She was in the one shot. She was in the Guardian one shot. She is a young Latinx woman who presents herself in ridiculous gothic, all black everything at all times. She is the Moros counselor. She has a focus on mind, so there's a little overlap with Atratus. It was not fully intentional, but I don't understand Moros, so this is what I think of when I think Moros. Is like, yeah, you're probably a goth and you like ghosts and death and horror stuff, right? There are many, many other ways to do this path, but I'm not very good at this game yet. So this is what I came up with. As a guardian, she does have access to the mask variant. Is one thing I kept track of, was like guardians, they could have masks. She's got a fully developed one. It is a whole other persona, complete with new like shadow name and everything, and she uses La Llorona, which, if you're not familiar, it is a Central American and predominantly Mexican, I think, myth or folklore, I think. Very like boogeyman kind of tale, like, if you don't come in for dinner, La Llorona is gonna drown you. She is a grieving mother ghost whose children have died, and she comes up out of the river and abducts children and drowns them. So this sort of horrifying persona is what Telltale puts on to do her particularly nasty ghost sorts of magic and less public-facing things that she needs to do. She is both the counselor and the de facto head of the Guardians in Richmond. Their like head office, I said, was in Charlotte, which is in North Carolina, which is like 3.5-4 hours away by car. So she's kind of on her own. There are, like I said, other important guardians in the area, but she both is on the council and runs it. So this is another point of that contention where I talked about how between Dog Don't Hunt and Telltale, how basically Guan Yu and the Arrows all think like, what the fuck? You're playing absolute favorites here. Telltale, if you didn't catch the shadow name, is Telltale Heart, Edgar Allan Poe. Poe lived in Richmond for a while during his life. We have a fantastic Edgar Allan Poe museum here in the city. So I thought it'd be really cool to have Moros based on his work as a shadow name, with a sanctum beneath the museum. So sanctums beneath museums, again, another crossover thing, but like that just seems too cool to not do. Like this was another idea I had pretty early in conception. Guan Yu. This is an important note and is something that I basically wrote, like, I think like one of the first notes that I wrote about her is like, this woman should be an archmage, and the fact that she is not is kind of horrifying. Everyone wishes that she would just finally go away or ascend or something, because she is ruining everything else everyone else is trying to do, and she is strong enough to force what she wants to happen given enough time and opportunity. She is a late 20s Chinese American woman. Specifically, she is a first generation immigrant from Hong Kong. Her family's from Hong Kong, and left, I guess, in the 80s. Yeah, that sounds right. I wanted to lean into this and explain this a little bit more. She leans into sort of stereotypical, like, Orientalist displays for her shadow name. The tight, silky Chinese dresses, she's got the waving cat and Buddha figures in her office. Like, her office reads like, or looks like, the entrance to a bad Chinese takeout place. And that is intentional, because she either wants to have people underestimate her because they're racist and terrible, or like actively have people be put on the bad back foot because they don't quite know how to deal with all of this going on at once. So I thought that was kind of a character kind of reclaiming some of these like symbols and stuff like that, and some of the Orientalism and exoticism that people display towards, especially Asian women, and having a powerful woman, like I said, reclaim that and use that as a weapon. I thought that was good. Like I said, she's a 4th generation mage. Her great grandfather was the first to awaken in her family, and it has continued to happen. She's obsessed with discovering why her bloodline continues to awaken. She's used life to asexually reproduce, and other people use time to accelerate those children's growth. She has done this a lot of times. She gets that wisdom back through hard work every time. And forcing them to awaken, and if they do not awaken, getting rid of them. This character is vile. She is not supposed to be likable. She is a powerful but deeply twisted, I think is probably the right word. But I kind of glanced over it, but Gnosis 8, 5th degree master. She doesn't know how to be a human anymore. And I wish I had some more screen time for her to get that across. I think it would have been really cool to kind of display how much of a monster this woman is. I wrote that she's willing to overthrow Bless, to go back to war with the Seers, because she wants to steal all their research into all the weird shit that they do. Specifically, if she found out that some of the smaller, like the Raptor Ministry and stuff like that, anything that they were doing with life magic to oppress and twist that to her own causes without going left-handed, well, she's probably would be branded left-handed if anyone actually knew what she's doing. much like Songbird, she fights with the adamant hand style, and she uses spirit magic for that and creates spirits temporarily of dragons to attack as she fights. So the thought of, that just seemed like a really cool visual if she had gotten into a fight. Another character that did not get to put in was Karika. I have a picture for her, and I love it because it's from some sort of crazy fashion bullshit. But like, this character's extra as fuck. Her shadow name's pulled from the Latin name for the fig tree, and she is aggressively atheistic. These sort of like Reddit, like checkmate Christians. I have the best arguments. You will bow before my intellect. Like that sort of just absolute asshole of a person as a Mystigos. Mind 5, Space 4, Spirit 3. She is a professor at VCU outside of her mage persona, as well as an activist. I wrote this. This I added today as sort of a thing. I was like, yeah, she's kind of a left-wing Karen. But yeah, she has basically been blacklisted from by a lot of the Obrimos because she like debates the existence of all of the like order and structure and machinations that they claim to exist in the world. And she basically disbelieves not only religion, but like planned, structured existence, and just sees everything and everyone as a bunch of sort of hedonistic urges slopped together into different creatures. We talked about Eatsley, my precious murder child. I did have some more, but these are kind of the only two that made the show, so I want to talk about them a little bit and why I created them and what I liked about them. Huxley is the leader of the Free Council. I originally had her as the counselor of the Obrimos and Virgil as the provost. But then I realized that she doesn't care, and in the situation that I was creating of the tenseness of this concilium, that there'd be no way that she was the counselor at this point if she just wants to kind of do her own thing. So she runs a pretty lax ship, doesn't care what other Free Council mages get up to as long as they stay wise about it. She does want to keep the adamantine arrow from completely taking power. She does like bless, but she's not really willing to like stand up against Guan Yu because, again, that woman is crazy. I think did we see Huxley in the show? Yeah, we saw Huxley in the show because Travis and Vicar and Matt with her. She is a professor of physics, has studied the physics of the world for her entire life, and then after awakening as an Obrimos, has dedicated herself to Forces in Prime, doesn't study anything else, just Forces in Prime, and maybe she has a couple dots of matter, just for tools and stuff like that. But she's obsessed with figuring out, if the lie were not here, what is physics? What is supernal physics? What are they actually? And then so picture her, with a platonic form particle accelerator that she's built in her laboratory sanctum, with a whiteboard where all the formulas, if you look at them as a sleeper, make your eyes start bleeding because they've got some sort of weird math going on there. So yeah, that's the kind of person that that is leading the Free Council. So less of a strong force than especially like Factory does, and certainly less than Benjamin Franklin does in the main OA show. Was really proud of that character. I didn't know how much more of that I could get across in the show if we didn't focus on it too much, or if she didn't come up as more of a character, but I liked her a lot. 621.5. Really like them. They're an agender person, assigned masculine at birth. If you don't know what AMAB means, that's what it means. Assigned masculine at birth. They're the curator for Richmond's Athenaeum. 621.5 is the melting point of lead. They're a Moros Forge Master. Shoutouts Forge Master. Y'all know how I feel about this legacy and how I play it on Songbird. 621 is a little bit more restrained and less showy than Songbird, certainly. They lean heavily into that just completely like genderless, gender neutral sort of presentation of, you take a look at them and like, that's a person. That is a person. And that is a perfectly valid way for them to express themselves. Because gender is a performance and I'm trying to get booed off stage. If you'll pardon me quoting a tweet I saw the other day. So Matter, Prime, and then Fate focused. They have been secretly arming and creating stuff to imbued and enhanced items and weapons and stuff like that to help enable Guan Yu's adamantine arrows. She recognizes that it's more for her to study and to make and to further her legacy and to further her reputation if she makes a bunch of stuff that people go to war with and win. She runs the Mysterium, and Bless is from the Mysterium, and they do not get along. She despises Bless. She thinks she's even more fake than her shadow name implies. Remember, I talked about the sarcasm behind the meaning of Bless Your Heart earlier. So yeah, those two don't get along. I did not have a chance to get into that in the show, but that could have been a really cool another point of contention and politicking and backstabbing and stuff like that. She does like barely toe the line of not just like being at a council meeting or showing up to a council meeting as, you know, the Mysterium representative going, I think we should go to war. Yeah, that is my notes. I don't know. Let's see. Was there anything else I want to talk about? So yeah, like you can see from these notes, like this is my prep of the people. From my themes, if we go back up, 4 pages, not bad. The when I got to back to the themes after creating this, my original plan, some of the different beats to hit and stuff, was going to be, I had the Mirror Coyote. I had him created. I still never named him. Mirror Coyote seemed well enough. I feel like Thyrsis summons, what are they called? Totems? And atavisms? Is that right? Beasts. Beasts summoned by Thyrsis are fairly straightforward and literal. The books do a pretty good job of getting that point across of like, nope, they just want you to prove that you're the top predator, or they want you to understand what it's like to be a prey to get their boon, or, you know, like that kind of thing. So a trickster coyote spirit felt fairly in the right realm for that kind of summon, and so I had the idea of the spirit of the James River being flipped over to the side, to the human side, and waking up, and the James River is not the cleanest river, and having her freak out because she wasn't getting the pure resonance that the river gives on the other side, but just the raw trashiness and grossness, and probably part of her bane, actually. But having this like rank 6 or rank 7 spirit just like, it's tidal wave time into the city and flood the city. And originally I did have, in my very, very first rendition and plans, because remember I said it's Bless versus Guan Yu. Neither of these women did I design to be good people, and so I had Bless actually as the one causing this all. It seemed like that was going to be a little bit forced and stuff, so I backed off of those plans, made her a little bit nicer, introduce the werewolves, to give further clues to like the players to be like, hey, y'all should really check out the spirit side of things, please. Because that was the first thing I told them. I said, if we play this, someone should be a fucking Thyrsus. Someone should have some spirit magic. And between the Thyrsus and the Mystigos, they both had 2 dots of spirit, which turned out to be enough. I won't lambast them too much, but I just like teasing them with that. I was like, I told you to have spirit. You could have had 4 dots. You could have done some wacky shit, but instead we just teleported the gauntlet and stuff like that, or teleported across the gauntlet and stuff like that, which is a-okay and very cool. And I loved how this whole arc turned out. I think I'm going to stop talking because we're almost at an hour of me shredding my vocal cords, and I'm still getting over, or I've just gotten over being sick for the last week of possible COVID. Very excited to get back to work and be a real human again later next week. But I'm going to stop talking now because my throat hurts and I've run out of things to say. And it's good that those things happened at the same time. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching me talk for almost an hour about my campaign that I ran. And hopefully you've enjoyed it and you've enjoyed the video, I would say. And hopefully you enjoy OA in general and the Richmond mini arc. We will see you again on Tuesday or Friday. I don't know when Drew will edit and post this video. So we will see you in the next episode. Come by the Discord and check us out. We got links right over there, that way, right over there. Cameras are hard, y'all. Yeah, we've got links right over there for our Patreon and for our Discord. Come check us out, or catch us on Twitch, or catch us on Twitter, or just come talk to us. We like talking to fans, and not even fans. We like talking to fans of the game. And we will see you next time, and stay lucky.